Does your boss criticize you a lot, and do you get the feeling that it's because they want to make you better or because it makes them feel better about themselves? The truth is, how you handle constructive comments is the key to your career success. Here to weigh on the right and the wrong way to deal with it, our psychologist, Dr. Jeff Gardier, business and life coach, Vivace Maxvictor, and leadership expert and author, Kirk Dandu. Thanks to all of you for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Kirk, I will start with you because you are a leadership and growth expert. And I would think you would be able to tell people how to lead and grow from criticism. How about if you start crying and get totally emotional? Is that good?
Typically not.
No.
No, that's not typically very good. I mean, when someone's trying to grow, and this is what I always share with people, is we all love to have somebody that just gives us the advice in the perfect way, in the perfect time, in the most gentle way.
Isn't that part of being a manager, is that you're supposed to be able to, in a constructive way, inspire people to do better?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it just doesn't happen all the time.
It doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes you get it in a rough way.
But if you break them down and they end up crying, it really does tell me that you are doing something wrong. But that's also a way for you to turn that to your advantage. If those tears come, that's a way to get that manager to stop doing what they're doing and to take a look at themselves, because what they've done is something that's pretty ugly.
Just because you're crying doesn't mean that what they've done is ugly. It just means you can't handle criticism. You don't want to be put on the spot.
I think you better have better skills than that as a manager. And if you're the person who is crying, I think next time around you better think of a better way to handle that situation.
Yeah,
the article that we were looking at for this outlined some key things that you should do to respond. And one of the things I thought was interesting was they said, determine if the criticism is accurate. That's really hard to do when it's the evaluation of yourself. How do you do that? How do you determine if it's accurate?
I think it's important to listen to the entire criticism and look for the grain of truth, and the grain of truth that allows you to grow as a human being. And not just grow in your business life, but also in your personal life.
So how do you sort out what the grain of truth is? If somebody says, you know, you're not doing the job the way we want you to, and you think to yourself as you're sitting there, that's not a fair criticism. What they're saying isn't accurate. Because there's a lot of people you see, you come and you talk to them about what was wrong yesterday on the show they did, the work they did, and they've got 1,000 excuses for why it went that way.
I think it's really important to know yourself and to know why you took that job in the first place. And if your initial motivation was to learn and to grow and to contribute to that industry, this is an opportunity for you to do so.
Does it matter if the criticism is accurate or not, if it's the boss's perception? I mean, that is the person who's in charge of your career. So if they think that you aren't performing up to the level or aren't doing this and this right, you think you are, does it really matter? If the boss doesn't think you are, then you're not.
Of
Here's
course
the deal,
it matters.
is you've got to be able to make a choice to grow. If you want to grow, you're going to get advice. Sometimes it's going to be in a form you like it, sometimes it's not going to be. If they're making you cry, no, that's not perfect. But in the real world, guess what? The road to heaven does go through hell. And it's your choice if it's a day trip or a daily trip.
Give me something actionable. What's the #1 thing I do? I go in, I sit down, they tell me what I need to do better. What do I do from there?
So we've all gotten hard advice. The best people do get hard advice. They take action on it. That's what you've got to do.
What does that mean?
You've got to step back and hit the pause button and be willing to step back and say, get beyond the details and look at the patterns. Have I heard this before? Has this person delivered this information in a similar way or other people? And I need to take that information and act on it.
Hearing it over and over again.
What's the right thing to say in the meeting? What do you say back?
The first thing to do, I think, that's most important is to not take anything personally.
But it is personal.
Not to take it personally, to come from a place of poise and power, and to allow your boss to explain exactly what they think they're perceived or whatever happened.
So take a breath and listen.
Take a breath and listen. But
never, ever, although I'm interrupting you,
not at all. I'm not taking it personal.
Never interrupt the boss, because the more that they feel heard, the more likely they are to hear you out.
Yeah, but I think at the same time, I think you take out a pen and some paper and you write down exactly what the boss is saying. And you can say to the boss, listen, I agree with you with all 5 points. I think maybe there's something here I need to tell you that can help you with what I think I'm doing right. So it's got to be a give and take. If you're just sitting there and you're just taking from that boss is going to start giving you inaccuracies and may think that you really don't care.
That you're not listening. Because if you fight back too much, then the boss thinks you're just not listening. At what period of time do you come back to them and say, you know, let's check back in? I mean, how do you set up a strategy going forward to get back with them and look for either more feedback or to see if you're doing better?
I think it's important right then and there, after you've listened to the criticism and to the feedback, be proactive, be positive, be grateful, be thankful, and actually in that moment suggest to the boss what you're willing to do differently immediately.
Immediately. Interesting. All right, guys, thank you.
Thank
All
you
right.
very
so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Up next, I'm ready for my next meeting with the boss. I'm ready. Up next.